I was with Alan for a year before I realized I was just a stand-in for his old flame. The moment the man he was truly in love with returned to the country, Alan kicked me to the curb, looking down his nose at me. Looking at you now, besides both being men, there's nothing similar between you two at all. You're not even worthy of being compared to him. My dream shattered, and I laughed at myself as I made my exit. Then, one freezing, snowy day, someone picked me up off the street. Only later did I find out he was Alan's unattainable old flame. Back then, he held me in his arms, kissing me with the utmost tenderness. Henry, he'd say, just look at me, okay? Alan had been acting strange lately, always distracted. He'd left his files at home several times, and I was the one who had to bring them to his office. I just figured he was overworked and told him to get some rest, that his health was the most important thing. He didn't say much at the time, just stared at me with those dark eyes, a flicker of irritation I couldn't quite place hiding within them. I knew he'd always had a bad temper. That's why, for the past year, I had patiently and meticulously managed all the little details of his life. I took care of him with all my heart, always obedient and understanding, just so he could live comfortably. One day, he told me he had plans that evening and wanted me to go with him. It seemed to be a get-together with his friends. I was a little surprised but quickly agreed. Even though we'd been living together for a year, he'd never introduced me to any of his friends. Did a gesture like this mean he was starting to care about me more? I would later learn how terribly wrong I was. He just wanted to brutally shatter my delusions. We went to a club. It was packed with people, men and women alike. They were all gathered, drinking and playing games, the noise a constant roar. I frowned instinctively. I didn't like scenes like this, but I kept quiet and sat silently beside Alan. Under the dazzling, colorful lights, Alan put his arm around me while a group of his buddies teased him, asking what we were. He didn't answer. Instead, he raised an eyebrow and turned to ask me, "What do you think?" The alcohol was starting to go to my head. Clutching my drink, I stared at him, dazed, feeling my face grow warm. "We're a couple." The crowd instantly erupted in laughter. "Ha ha ha. Oh man, Alan, this kid actually took it seriously. Didn't you tell him the real deal was coming back? He's just a substitute. Did he really think he'd landed a guy like Alan? Does he even know his own place?" What were they talking about? I was completely stunned, my mind replaying their words over and over, trying to make sense of them. A substitute? Not even. Alan finally spoke, a smirk playing on his lips. Just a toy to pass the time. With that, he dropped his arm from my shoulders, pulling his hand back and looking away, as if even one more glance at me was too much to bear. I froze, feeling like I'd been plunged into an icy abyss. Is this some kind of sick joke? I thought. My alcohol-numbed brain couldn't process it. I stared at Alan, trying to read something, anything, on his expressionless face. "Hey, handsome, don't be sad," a flippant male voice said next to my ear. A hand reached out, trying to touch me. "You're so good-looking. If Alan doesn't want you, there's always us. We won't let you feel left out." A wave of nausea washed over me. I shot up from my seat, dodging his hand. My eyes were still locked on Alan as I asked in a trembling voice, What does all of this mean?" Alan remained seated, lighting a cigarette. His expression was indifferent. "Henry, this is where it ends for us. You've always been smart. Don't make me say it twice, okay?" Through the curling smoke, his handsome face looked cold, almost cruel. The world felt like it was spinning. I don't remember how I got out of that private room or how I made it back to our place at Maple Creek. The empty villa felt desolate. A year ago, I had moved in here at Alan's request, starting our life together. Back then, I thought this was our home. It was on a street covered in maple leaves that he had first approached me, asking gently, "Can I get to know you?" He was so attentive, so caring. After that, he appeared in my life as the perfect suitor. And eventually, I fell for him. When he asked, "Will you be with me?" I gave him a definite yes. Looking back now, I realize how foolish I was. The signs were there all along. Alan loved picking out my clothes. Nearly everything I'd worn in the last year was bought by him. He always took me to that one restaurant I clearly didn't like. If I ever brought home some cute little knick-knack on a whim, he'd scowl and tell me to get rid of it. I had assumed these were just his quirks, never imagining they were someone else's preferences. So I was a replacement. The man I saw as my lover was just using me as a substitute for someone else. I took a deep breath, my chest filling with a cold emptiness. Alan didn't come home that night. I curled up on the living room sofa and stayed there all night. I don't even know when I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was still on the couch, my body aching and my throat parched. I looked around. Everything was the same. He still wasn't back. Rubbing my throbbing head, I got up to wash my face. Then I went to the kitchen, made a simple breakfast, and ate alone in silence. My mind was racing, making plans. Alan had said it himself yesterday. This is where it ends. I knew he wasn't joking, he was a man of his word. From what his friends had said, I could piece together the story. Alan's old flame was back, so the stand-in was no longer needed. I wasn't against breaking up. In fact, the thought of him made me sick now, and I wanted to cut ties as quickly as possible. But there were still some things I needed to clear up. I had invested a year of genuine feelings into this. Leaving with my tail between my legs felt too pathetic. Before I left, I needed to talk to him. My mind made up, I took out my phone and sent Alan a text. We need to talk. I'll be waiting for you at Maple Creek. A long time later, he replied with a single, dismissive K. I waited for 3 days. The next time I saw Alan was on the evening of the third day. He looked well, a smile on his face, probably because his old flame was about to return. When he saw me, he raised an eyebrow. You're still here? I took a quiet breath and got straight to the point. Alan, when you first came after me, was it like they said? Were you just using me as a substitute for someone else? Is it really necessary to dwell on this, Henry? He said dismissively. Haven't I given you enough? I looked at him, my face blank. I thought we were in a normal relationship. Just a toy to pass the time. Wasn't that what you called me the other day? Did I? I don't remember. Probably. He walked over and sat down on the sofa, a look of complete indifference on his face. Who would have thought that this cold man had, just a few days ago, held me gently and whispered reassurances? I let out a sarcastic laugh. Playing a part for a year, you must be exhausted. My mockery seemed to have hit a nerve. Alan's expression finally changed. His face darkened, and he said coldly, Henry, don't push it. Yes. I only approached you because you looked a bit like Ian. Did you really think I'd be interested in you otherwise? Looking at you now, besides both being men, you're not that similar. Ian is proud and vibrant, not like you, bland and utterly boring. He's better than you in every way. You're not even worthy of being compared to him. His words were filled with condescension and disdain. All the gentleness from before was gone. I was stunned. How did I not see this ugly, twisted side of him sooner? This was the man I had doted on, cared for, and stood by for a year? I was such an idiot. Suppressing the urge to punch him in the face, I scoffed, Alan, you're a real piece of work. An absolute, disgusting bastard. At that, he shot to his feet, his face terrifyingly dark, looking like he was about to hit me. Now get out of my house. That's what he said. It was late. It was winter, and snowflakes were drifting down outside. On a night this cold, Alan was kicking me out without a second thought. He wasn't leaving me with even a shred of decency. Fine by me. Every second I stayed in this place made my stomach turn. I walked past him and went upstairs to pack my things. Most of my stuff had been bought by Alan, including clothes and toiletries. What I once saw as his thoughtfulness was now revealed to be a sickening imitation. He had probably bought everything based on the preferences of that old flame. I only took what I had bought myself. After living here for a year, it all fit into a single suitcase. I was grateful now that I hadn't spent a single penny of the money Alan had given me. It was all sitting in a bank account. I had a job, I wasn't some kept man he supported. I'm just a homebody by nature, so I'd been working from home as a freelance concept artist, taking on occasional projects. I could fully support myself and live quite well. When I came downstairs, Alan was still on the sofa, his expression sullen. I had no idea what he was so angry about. I walked over and put the bank card on the table. Here's your money. I never touched it. The pin is the same. He didn't answer. It wasn't until I was dragging my suitcase to the door that he spoke, his voice sinister. You sure about this? From now on, you'll never get anything from me again. I don't need it. Let's just say I wasted a year of my life on a dog. Who would want his filthy things? I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Without a single glance back, I left Maple Creek. It was freezing cold that day. Maple Creek was in an exclusive, wealthy neighborhood. To get a cab, I had to walk a good distance. There wasn't another person in sight on the empty street. The bleak, cold wind, mixed with rain and snow, pelted my face. The chill felt like it had seeped into my bones, and I couldn't stop shivering. I pulled my phone out of my coat and checked the time. Almost 10 p.m. At this hour, in this weather, I had no idea if I'd even be able to get a ride. The cold I'd caught from sleeping on the sofa a few nights ago hadn't gone away. I fought through the throbbing in my head, my steps growing heavier and heavier. I felt incredibly dizzy. I squatted down, hoping to ease the discomfort. Suddenly, a bright light shone on me. It was an expensive luxury car. I scooted back a little to make sure I wasn't blocking its path. To my surprise, the car stopped a short distance away, and a man got out. He was tall, and a black overcoat accentuated his slender frame. He walked slowly toward me. I wearily lifted my eyes and could just make out a handsome, aloof face. Then I heard him speak. Cosplaying a snowman? I was speechless. Sorry, am I in your way? I slowly stood up, another wave of dizziness hitting me. Once I was steady, I realized the man in front of me was a good half-foot taller than me. Not at all, he said, his brow slightly furrowed. His tone was hesitant. I just wanted to confirm this wasn't a crime scene. I choked. This guy was talking nonsense. Just then, a cold gust of wind blew past. I shivered and shook my head. It's nothing. I'll be on my way. I turned to leave. The man's deep, magnetic voice sounded behind me again. You don't look okay. Need a hand? He didn't finish his sentence. My head spun even more, my body swayed, and I was about to collapse. A strong hand grabbed my arm, and I fell into a firm, cool embrace. One of his hands gripped my arm while the other supported my waist. I was practically enveloped in his arms, a faint warmth spreading from where we touched. Our eyes met, and I marveled at his impossibly stunning face. Coming back to my senses, I quickly thanked him. Thank you. In your state, you'll take 2 steps and pass out, the man said flatly. Need to go to the hospital? I can give you a ride. I pulled back a little and he finally let go. I was cold and dizzy. After thinking for 2 seconds, I decided to accept his help. Could you please take me to a nearby hotel? Thanks. I'll pay you, of course. He raised an eyebrow. Do I look like a driver? Despite his words, he shifted and gestured for me to get in the car. I followed him, but the bag I was carrying slipped from my hand, and the sketches inside scattered all over the ground. Just a second, I called out. The man turned, his eyes dropping to the ground. When they landed on the scattered sketches, his pupils contracted. I was confused. My art wasn't top tier, but it was decent. Shouldn't have scared him. Was he stunned by my genius? Amused by my own thought, I crouched down and started gathering my papers. Did you draw these? He asked. I just grunted, mm. The man crouched down to help me pick them up. I glanced at him but didn't refuse. He talked a little weird, but he seemed like a nice guy. After we stood up, he looked at me. His naturally stern face was still expressionless, but his eyes seemed to hold a hint of something I couldn't quite place. Nervousness? Ahem. He cleared his throat and stammered. Hey, man, do you want to just crash at my place? I live right around here. This close. I was baffled. Why the sudden reverence? His abrupt shift left me speechless for a moment. Get in the car first. Ignoring my dazed state, he practically bundled me into the passenger seat, then put my luggage in the trunk. The car was warm. I slowly relaxed, feeling drowsy. In a daze, he took me back to his place. This house, this car, it was obvious he was rich, so the possibility he was trying to scam me was out. Still, bringing a stranger home after just meeting them? That was some serious trust. I thought this to myself as I quietly followed the man carrying my suitcase in front of me. Thanks, I can get that. Once we were inside, I tried to take my suitcase, but he sidestepped me. Don't worry about it. The patient should sit down. His tone left no room for argument, so I let him put the suitcase away and sat on the sofa, cautiously looking around the house. It had the same cool color palette as the house at Maple Creek, with a similar minimalist yet luxurious design. Do you have a cold? The man's deep voice asked. Yes, I answered automatically. 2 minutes later, he came back with a glass of hot water and some medicine. Here, take this. I really did feel awful, so I didn't protest. I took the medicine and swallowed it. Thank you, I said, looking up at him. Can I ask your name? Julian. I smiled, offering a polite one in return. I'm Henry. He just looked at me, his dark eyes deep and unreadable. After a few seconds, he asked tentatively, Are you the artist Sean? My eyes widened slightly. Sean was my handle on all my social media accounts, including X and my streaming channel. As an artist, I often shared my work on my socials and had gathered a fair number of followers over the years. Had he recognized my art from that one glance at my sketches? After a moment of stunned silence, I asked, You know me? The man's naturally sharp features seemed to soften. He gave a soft in confirmation. Then, a look of confusion crossed his face. Why were you wandering the streets with a suitcase in the middle of the night in this cold? His tone even held a hint of criticism. What if you'd been mugged? His question brought Alan back to mind. I unconsciously lowered my gaze and tightened my grip on the cup. My roommate kicked me out. What kind of roommate? Julian's voice suddenly turned cold. That's an asshole. I smirked. He wasn't wrong. Thank you. I'll just crash here for tonight, and I'll be out of your hair tomorrow. He mumbled a vague, I had a wonderful night's sleep at Julian's place. When I woke up the next day, it was already 10 o'clock. I scrambled to get ready and rushed downstairs. I found Julian sitting at the dining table, looking at his phone. When he saw me hurrying down, he glanced behind me. What's the rush? Something chasing you? Not exactly, I said, pressing my lips together in embarrassment. Sorry, I overslept. He looked enlightened. Late for work? No, I'm a freelancer. I sighed internally. It felt like we were always on different wavelengths. Right? Come have breakfast. So, the two of us finished breakfast in a silent but comfortable harmony. I felt a little awkward for having stayed so long at the home of someone I'd known for less than a day. After getting his contact info, I thanked him again and told him I needed to leave to find a place to rent. He quickly added me on WhatsApp and then looked at me. Are you interested in finding a roommate who has a regular schedule, is easygoing, good-natured, 6'2", has 8-pack abs, and is kinda handsome? His face was deadpan. No reason, just that his place is cheap and really nice. And this roommate would be? Me. And just like that, I found a place to live without much effort. As he'd said, the apartment was huge and beautiful, with plenty of empty rooms for me to choose from. The rent was incredibly affordable. No matter how you looked at it, I was getting the better end of the deal. I did hesitate for a moment, though, since it was in the same complex as Alan. I thought about it for a few seconds when Julian said, I have a lot of properties. If this one doesn't work, you can pick another. But then I reconsidered. I was a total homebody and rarely went out. Alan was always busy, working from morning till night when I lived at Maple Creek. It wasn't even certain he'd still be living there. The chances of running into him were slim. Besides, even if I did, I had nothing to be afraid of. He was the one with the character flaws, not me. So the decision was happily made. I rented Julian's place for a steal and became his roommate. After a few days, I had pretty much settled in. My landlord/roommate was a great guy who took really good care of me. When he left for work in the morning, he always left a portion of breakfast for me. I learned he was the CEO of a major gaming company and usually worked a 9 to 5. He was very consistent about coming home, and we almost always had dinner together. Sometimes he cooked, sometimes I did, and sometimes we ordered takeout. I suspected he was a fan of mine. After all, he'd mentioned knowing my social media handle and had given me such a huge discount on rent. But he was probably too shy to admit it, so I didn't call him out on it. One day, I opened the fridge to figure out what to eat, only to find it nearly empty. I immediately called Julian. Julian, we're out of groceries. Are we? What do you want to eat? I'll pick some stuff up after work. After thinking for a long time, my indecisiveness kicked in. I decided to go pick things out myself. I'll go with you. Which mall is close to your office? I'll meet you there when you get off work. It was all settled. But to my surprise, Julian came home early. I was curled up on the living room sofa watching TV when he walked in, bringing a gust of cold air with him. When he saw me, his eyes seemed to soften, and he gave me a small smile. I was surprised. What are you doing back so early? Came back to change, he said, his expression unchanged. We'll go out together in a bit. Having been cooped up inside all day, I had no concept of the temperature outside. I was about to head out in just a coat when Julian ordered me back to my room to change into a down jacket and put on a scarf. By the time I was ready, an hour had passed. We took Julian's luxury car and drove to the mall. This members-only supermarket was huge, and it had everything. We pushed a small cart and wandered slowly through the aisles, picking out ingredients. People kept turning to look at us, and I wondered if it was because I was just that handsome. I glanced at Julian beside me. Okay, I admit the chances they were looking at him were probably higher. By the way, Julian, I asked, are there any foods you don't eat? Julian thought for a second. Not really. I just don't eat cilantro or onions or ginger or root vegetables or organ meats or skin. He trailed off, looking at me. I gave him a look that said, and you call that not really? He seemed to realize the contradiction and cleared his throat to save face. Actually, I'm pretty easy to feed. I was confused. Easy to feed or not, why was he telling me? Was he hinting that I should make dinner for him from now on? Considering how well he took care of me, and how tired he must be after work every day, making dinner didn't seem like a bad idea. I didn't say anything else, and we continued walking, each lost in our own thoughts. After buying our groceries, I stood on the street waiting for Julian to get the car. Suddenly, someone behind me called out my name. Henry? I turned around to see a man walking toward me. He was dressed in flashy, colorful clothes, with a bloated figure, a greasy face, and dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me turn, a lecherous smile spread across his face. It really is you. You left in such a hurry last time. I forgot to get your number. I frowned, trying to remember. I had a vague impression. He was one of the guys who had been mocking me at the club with Alan. I didn't say anything, but he continued with his moronic speech. Life's not as good now that you've left Alan. Huh? How about you come with me? I promise I'll take good care of you. The lust in his eyes was undisguised. I backed away in disgust. Don't talk to me. You're making me sick. I felt like I could smell the stench coming off him from several feet away. What's with the act? His face changed, twisting into a vicious snarl. You're just a whore for sale. I suggest you don't play hard to get. With that, he lunged forward to grab me. Before I could react, a blur of motion shot past me. The man in front of me was kicked away, landing flat on his face. Are you looking to die? I turned to see Julian standing beside me, his face a mask of cold fury. His voice was terrifyingly icy. Don't you have a mirror? A train wreck like you really thinks you have a shot at him? You fucking dare hit me. Do you know who I am? The man on the ground cursed, struggling to get up. The ground was slippery from the snow. As the man pushed himself up and looked at Julian, he suddenly fell back down. His face was filled with terror. Julian? So you know me? Julian sneered. Then you're finished. I was still marveling at Julian's heroic display and his ability to scare someone so badly. Then I heard him ask me, "Are you okay?" I shook my head. Julian suddenly reached out and tightened the scarf around my neck, the storm on his face clearing completely. Then let's go home. Okay. In the car, small snowflakes began to fall again outside the window. As I watched them, Julian called my name. Henry. Ever since I learned he was 2 years older than me, we'd started calling each other Julian and Henry. I turned. "What's up?" His expression was serious, his tone earnest. A guy needs to protect himself when he's out and about. It can't be helped good-looking people have these kinds of problems. If you run into a situation like this again, remember to call me first. I felt like he was underestimating me and retorted, "You just beat me to it." I could have kicked him over myself. Okay, he laughed. "Just remember to kick him for real. I'll have your back." What was with that indulgent tone? I turned back to watch the snow, feeling my cheeks get a little warm. Life had been peaceful and fulfilling lately. There was just one small, unexpected incident. That bastard Alan actually sent me a text. Two, in fact. "What have you been up to? Come see me. You still have a chance to get that card back." My mistake, I hadn't blocked his number. Without a moment's hesitation, I added him to my block list. Realizing I hadn't streamed in a while, I logged onto my channel and started a broadcast. Before long, my quiet, generous supporter showed up. He entered the stream and immediately sent 2 expensive gifts. Watching the special effects fill the screen, I quickly thanked him. "Thank you, Shan's guardian, for the gifts. Thank you so much." This guy had started watching my streams about 6 months ago and apparently lived abroad. He once told me that because of the time difference, when I streamed during my day, it was his night, and he would fall asleep to the sound of my voice. My streams were just me drawing and explaining my process, but for him, I had become a sleep aid streamer. He was very generous, consistently holding the top spot on my leaderboard, but he didn't talk much. He would just show up quietly and stay until the stream ended. When he did post in the chat, it was usually to shut down people who accused me of faking my art or were trying to smear my name. Maybe that was just how rich people roll. One day, Julian texted me that the temperature had gone up a whole degree and asked if I wanted to go out for hot pot to celebrate. I couldn't remember how many times he'd used a bizarre reason to ask me out to eat recently. I smiled and agreed. This all-you-can-eat hot pot place had just opened. It was luxuriously decorated and very expensive, but the selection was huge and the service was decent, so trying it once was fine. Eating a steaming hot pot in the middle of winter is pure bliss. Julian placed some cooked meat into my bowl. I dipped it in sauce and popped it in my mouth. Delicious. Just like that, he cooked and I ate. A whole plate of meat disappeared quickly. I looked up, about to tell him to eat too and not just feed me. But out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of a figure behind him and froze. I quickly recovered and went back to eating. "Henry," a cold male voice suddenly said from above me. "Who gave you the nerve to block me?" I looked up to see Alan had walked over. He was standing right behind Julian, staring at me. I didn't say anything. He glanced down at Julian, his voice growing even colder. "Well, look at you. A seamless transition? Who'd you latch onto this time? What dog is barking in here?" His sentence was cut short. Julian put down his chopsticks, leaned back in his chair, and tilted his head to glare at him. "Do they let animals into this restaurant?" "What did you say?" Alan stopped mid-sentence. He stared at Julian's face, and all the anger drained away. His eyes widened in disbelief. "Ian? What are you doing here?" I was stunned too. "Ian who?" This was Julian. Was Alan's eyesight failing him? Alan's voice had lost all its earlier coldness, becoming incredibly soft. "Ian, I couldn't get in touch with you. Did you change your number?" Julian just clicked his tongue in annoyance, his face full of disgust. "I changed my name years ago. Can you not act like we're close?" Now it was my turn to be wide-eyed. Julian didn't deny it. He said he'd changed his name. So he was Ian, Alan's old flame? While I was still reeling from the shock, Alan, seemingly oblivious to Julian's rejection, smiled patiently. "Right, I heard. It's just been so long. Can we get dinner sometime when you're free?" Julian was blunt. "We're not close. Get lost." As Alan was about to speak again, Julian called over a waiter and said a mentally ill person was disturbing the guests. The scene became a bit chaotic. Alan's face turned ashen, but he managed to hold back his anger. I marveled at his self-control. Then, just before he left, he shot me a furious glare, his eyes practically spitting fire. He really was insane. Amidst this dramatic scene, I stared blankly as he left, then turned to stare blankly at Julian. Julian, on the other hand, was completely calm. He placed another piece of cooked meat in my bowl and said, "Keep eating." Julian didn't seem to want to talk about it, so I suppressed my curiosity and continued to devour my hot pot. It wasn't until we were in the car that I hesitantly asked, "Julian, was your old name Ian?" He nodded. "I wasn't trying to hide it from you. It just felt like a minor detail not worth mentioning." I shook my head to show I didn't mind, then asked, "So you and Alan knew each other?"
Alan?
"That psycho from before?" He frowned, thinking for a moment. "I met him a few times at other people's parties before I went abroad. I only have one impression of him. Loves to act like a big shot." Julian's repulsion and disgust when talking about Alan were palpable. Hearing his description, I almost burst out laughing. If Alan knew his cherished old flame despised him this much, would he die of anger? Then another question popped into my head. "Julian, do you think we look alike?" I couldn't help but study his face. Other than both having eyes, a nose, a mouth, and eyebrows, I really couldn't see any resemblance. "Huh?" He was thrown by my question and stared at me, dumbfounded. Then, after some unknown leap of logic, he stammered, "I have heard that people who are together for a long time start to look alike. You know, that couple's resemblance thing. But we're probably fine. We haven't lived together long enough." I was speechless. That's not what I meant at all. And from his last sentence, he actually sounded a little disappointed. After a moment, I gathered my thoughts and briefly explained what had happened between me and Alan, including the whole old flame and the stand-in situation. If things went as expected, I'd be spending a lot more time with Julian, and I didn't want this to become a source of misunderstanding or conflict between us. "He's the roommate who kicked you out in the middle of a winter night?"
Yeah.
"That's seriously deranged." The disgust in Julian's eyes deepened. "Don't even spare a glance for trash like that in the future." This was not what I expected. Julian, the supposed old flame, barely knew Alan and actively disliked him. So now we were on the same side. After a moment of silence, Julian asked hesitantly, "So you like guys?" I paused, glancing at him.
"Yeah."
"Do you mind?" He immediately shot back, "No, not at all. I don't mind one bit." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him crack a smile after he said it. What was there to be so happy about? Life went on as usual. I spent my days at home, drawing and streaming. Occasionally, Julian and I would go out to eat. Looking back, it was 1,000 times more comfortable than my time at Maple Creek. My good mood was only briefly ruined by a text from an unknown number one day. "Henry, what the hell do you think you're doing? Don't think you can change anything by secretly getting close to Ian behind my back. Cut the crap. If I find out you do anything to hurt him, I will make you pay." It was obviously from that jackass Alan. I had to laugh. With an imagination like that, wasn't he afraid of an aneurysm? So I texted back, "You're a moron. Seriously, go check yourself into a psych ward." Then I blocked the number without a second thought. After spending more time together, I found that my roommate Julian was becoming more and more perfect. He was constantly thinking about me, the homebound hermit. Worried I'd get bored, he'd text me frequently during his workday. Before heading home, he'd ask if I needed anything and pick it up for me. When he got home, he'd often head straight to the kitchen to make me dinner, never repeating a meal. Sometimes he'd take me out to eat, and we'd practically tried every good restaurant in the city. And I, in turn, was getting bolder, asking him to bring me this and that every day. Of course, wanting to return the favor, I'd occasionally pick up gifts for him when I went out during the day. Everything was great except for one small habit he had. He was always showing off his physique in front of me. One day, after seeing him wander around the house shirtless for the umpteenth time, I finally couldn't take it anymore. "Aren't you cold?" I asked. "Nope," he said calmly. "The heat's on." "Is that the point?" "The point is that you're messing with my head. Dude, don't you know I might lose control if you keep flaunting that perfect body in front of me?" So I took a deep breath and decided to scare him. I like men, you know. The next second, he couldn't contain his smile, his eyes overflowing with delight. So you're into me? His question made my cheeks flush, and I stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. Finally, I just blurted out, "You have no shame," and bolted into my room. As I was burrowing under the covers to cool down, I got a text. It was from Julian. "What do you mean, no shame? It's not like I show anyone else." My face got even hotter. We acted like nothing happened and never brought it up again. One day, Julian suddenly asked if I had any free time coming up. He had a project he wanted me to collaborate on. "I know your skills and your level of work. You're a perfect fit for what I have in mind for this project." I thought about it. I was about to finish my last commission in a few days, so I'd be free. I nodded. "Okay, sure." His eyes lit up. Then he added, "Why don't you come work at my company? I'll make sure the salary is more than satisfying, and the benefits are great too." I hesitated. "That way, we'd see each other more. We could work together." "Don't worry, the company will set you up with your own private workspace." After that day, Julian kept subtly trying to bribe me. A week later, I officially started my new job at Nova Games. Even though my workplace had changed, my workload hadn't increased. The company had a great atmosphere, and my colleagues were all nice, so I adjusted quickly. After work, I could even hitch a ride home with Julian. It was perfect. "Henry, time to clock out." I looked up to see Julian leaning against my doorway, watching me. Under the lights, the softness in his eyes was unmistakable. I paused for a second, then saved my file and shut down my computer. "Coming." After packing my things, I walked with Julian to the parking garage. It was late. We had both worked overtime. I glanced at Julian and saw the clear exhaustion on his face. "You tired?" I asked. "Go home and get some rest. Let's just order takeout tonight. You worked hard." "You too, Henry. It'll get better after this crunch period." As he spoke, he reached out and ruffled my hair. He'd been doing that more and more smoothly lately. But seeing how hard he'd been working, I just pouted and didn't dodge it. So he pushed his luck. "Can I get a comforting hug, Henry?" Before I could answer, the man leaned in, wrapped his arms around me, and pulled me into an embrace. His unique, cool scent surrounded me, and a warmth spread through my body. I breathed in his scent, my head resting blankly against his chest. My heart was beating so fast. I couldn't tell if it was his or mine. He held me for a long time. I was the first to come to my senses, urging him, okay, let's go home." "Yeah, home." Just as I pulled back slightly, about to leave his arms, I saw Alan standing behind him. He saw me too, froze for a second, and then yelled, "Who are you?" "Let go of Henry." He rushed over, his face contorted with rage. But when Julian turned to face him, he stopped dead in his tracks. The expression on his face was priceless. "No, Henry, you let go of him." I was speechless. Talk about a quick change. "You're not welcome at Nova. Get lost." As Julian spoke, he finally released his hold on me. But a second later, he took my hand. Alan was furious but didn't dare explode in front of Julian. He swallowed his anger and said, "Ian, nothing ever happened between him and me. I never touched him." Julian raised an eyebrow. "So you're saying you didn't completely ruin him?" Alan continued, "You don't have to debase yourself like this just to spite me, hanging around with someone so manipulative." Julian and I were both like? Julian took a deep breath, squeezed my hand, and leaned down to whisper in my ear. As if no one else was there, his condition, it's a lot like that book we were reading the other day, right? What was it called? Narcissistic personality disorder. I nodded. "You're right, Ian. I'll explain any misunderstandings between us." Alan was still talking to himself. "Don't listen to a word Henry says. I've been trying to come see you at the office lately, but the security guards at the entrance keep stopping me." At this, he shot me a vicious glare, as if I were the chief of security. Julian cut him off. "I fucking told you my name isn't Ian anymore. Got it? And I'm the one who told them not to let you in. Nova doesn't let just any stray dog wander in. Also, can't you see I'm trying to woo someone? Try to stir up trouble again and see what happens." "You? Wooing someone? Impossible. Stop joking." Alan's expression contorted, becoming almost feral. I was shocked too. Julian said he was wooing someone? Who? Me? I looked up at Julian with wide eyes. His expression was serious, and his gaze toward Alan was filled with endless ice. Alan, right? Remember this. From now on, we're enemies. The fight to the death kind. I'll make you pay 1,000 times over for the hurt you caused Henry. Ignoring Alan's impotent rage, Julian bundled a stunned me into the passenger seat and drove home. After a long while, I came to my senses and kept stealing glances at him. Julian was staring straight ahead, his face expressionless, but if you looked closely, you could see a hint of panic in his eyes. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Are you pursuing me? He nodded. Yeah. But you never said anything. He frowned. Wasn't it obvious? I read that when you're pursuing someone, actions are what matter most. You have to prove it with your actions. That. Julian had been incredibly good to me, especially recently. It was almost over the top. I had often wondered if he had a crush on me, but I was afraid of being wrong. Maybe it was just concern for a roommate or how a fan treats their idol. My God, if this hadn't happened today, how much longer was Julian planning to just act before saying anything? I was incredulous. Can't actions and words go together? Oh right, Julian considered this for 2 seconds. My bad, baby. The day Julian and I made it official, he was so happy he couldn't stop smiling. He took me out for a massive feast to, in his words, commemorate this beautiful day. That was also the night Julian lured me into the master bedroom to sleep with him. This is what he said at the time. I'm a man with a boyfriend now. My darling boyfriend has to sleep in my arms. How else am I supposed to sleep? Henry, baby, how can you bear to let your boyfriend sleep all alone? I never thought you were this kind of guy, Julian. I had no choice but to agree. Julian's affection was so obvious I could feel his fervent love at every moment. Just like now, as he pulled me into his arms and kissed me gently. Soft, delicate kisses landed on my forehead, traveled down past my eyes to the tip of my nose, and then to my lips. I closed my eyes, parting my lips slightly, our tongues intertwining. My whole body felt hot. He kissed me for a long time before finally letting go, and we lay in each other's arms, panting. A thought suddenly struck me. Why do you like me? Julian looked at me, my reflection mirrored in his eyes. Maybe it was all those nights I fell asleep listening to your voice. Maybe it was that one glance on that snowy night. Or maybe it was every single day we've spent together. My eyes widened. You're Shan's guardian? He chuckled, holding me tighter. Now I can protect you officially. Every day with Julian was happy. I never knew real love could be this sweet. Thinking back now, did I ever really like Alan? Probably not. I was just mesmerized by the thoughtful, gentle persona he put on. I was alone in the city, feeling adrift and desperate for stable companionship and a settled life. Alan was right, we never did anything. The most intimate we ever got was holding hands. We barely even hugged. At the time, I thought it's too soon. I shouldn't be that intimate with him yet. Thinking about it now, I realized my subconscious just didn't like him, so I wasn't willing. After getting together with Julian, in just a short time, we'd done everything except the final step. He was especially clingy, ready to lean in for a kiss anytime, anywhere. It made me constantly nervous that our office romance would be discovered. The next time I heard news about Alan, it was that his company was in major trouble. If he couldn't handle it, he might go bankrupt. I knew Julian had a hand in it, but he was an insignificant person now. I had no desire to pay him any mind. Julian had been acting mysterious lately, like he was preparing for something. It wasn't until I found the items in the nightstand drawer that I understood. The sly dog was thirsty. I didn't say anything, just quietly watched to see what he would do. That night, after our showers, we were lying in bed as usual. Henry, he said, wrapping his arm around my waist, his voice sticky sweet. I'm ready. Oh, I said. This was a surprise, but I quickly agreed. I said, He said patiently, I'm ready. I know. Are you SpongeBob or something? He got anxious. I'm ready. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I burst out laughing, rolled over on top of him, and leaned in, winking. I'm ready to. The next second, the world turned upside down. Our positions were reversed, and I was pinned beneath him. The man's urgent kisses rained down. I don't know how much time passed. In a daze, I felt myself being pulled into a searing, hot embrace again. Someone lamented in my ear, "Man, I'm such an animal." I wanted to kick him, but I couldn't move. I could only drift into a deep sleep. "Whatever. I'll deal with you when I wake up."